Serious. Redditors who claim to have encountered aliens, what's your story? 1999, my friend and I are in the back seat of the car driving from Boulder to Netherland. We come over a hill and there appears three massive perfect columns of blue light stretching from the ground to infinite height a few hundred yards off of the road. My friend and I start yelling at our friends in the front seat, "Look! Look!" pointing them out. The friends in the front seat just kept chatting to themselves, completely ignoring us. A few minutes later, after we had passed the lights, they finally acknowledged us. They said they did not hear us yelling about UFO for the past 2 minutes. They said they didn't hear anything from the back seat at all, which would have been impossible. Really weird and frustrating. I posted this before, but I'll do an abbreviated version. This was something that I still can't quite explain. Even after trying to come up with rational explanations and posting it on various Reddit threads. I was coming home one night from work at about 2 a.m. I approached a church that I passed every single day. The first weird thing I noticed was a radio tower-esque light hovering above it. It was red and was blinking in an unusual manner. Most radio towers have an alert light that has some kind of pattern to it. This one was just going nuts. The next thing I noticed was that all of the street lights in the parking lot were out. This place has a very well-lit parking lot that was completely black. I pulled up to it and immediately hit the brakes. Hovering about 200 ft above the steeple was a long airship with these weird vents protruding off the sides. The vents seemed to be spotlights that was illuminating the churchyard and some of the street. It made no noise. It just hovered there like a weird balloon, perfectly silent. It even drifted slightly to one side. I was shocked. I remember sitting there going, "What the is that? I've seen blimps, helicopters, planes." It was none of those. After watching it in shock for what seemed like 20 minutes, but it was probably just seconds, it shot off. Like 0 to 100 in mere milliseconds. I tried to follow it, but in moments it was a speck, and then it was gone. I told my friends about it, but of course, it was one of those sure conversations like obviously they don't believe me. I'm not into alien conspiracies, nor am I a sky watcher. Had I not seen it with my own eyes, stone sober, with the closeness that I did, I wouldn't believe it either. I kicked myself for not taking a photo, but my phone at the time was a BlackBerry with a 3-megapixel camera, so it would have just looked like a black blob. There's something has always bothered me about alien spacecraft sightings. Why so all these ships have huge, painfully obvious lights on them that obviously don't want to be seen because they haven't made contact, and they always speed off after someone sees them. For God's sake, we're probably a millennia behind them technology-wise, and we can at least turn off our flashing lights on our spy craft. I think that would depend on the level of technology to how they view us in comparison with other living creatures. For example, we see ants and pay them little attention, but whenever a deer or fox is walking alongside the road, we flip and have to all get a good look at it. I was driving down a road in the middle of the day. There are fields on both sides, no other cars on the road. I saw it look like a falling star. It was a big white ball of light with a tail, and it was hard to look at, even with sunglasses on. I had time to pull over and stop, still watching it fall straight down. This thing was going way faster than it should have, and so I was struggling to get my phone out of my pocket without taking my eyes off of it. Here's where it gets weird. Without warning, when it reached about eye level, it leveled off. I watched this thing go from vertical to horizontal in less than a second. It disappeared behind a line of trees and I noped out of there. I saw the exact same thing once. I was sitting in my room at night and saw what looked like a star just drop from the sky out of the corner of my eye. Right as I looked at it, it went 90 degrees behind some trees and I lost it. Edit. Also, one time my friends and I were driving around when we saw something that looked like a moving comet in the sky, except it was huge and did not appear to actually be moving despite having a tail. We eventually lost it and we couldn't see it again for the rest of the night. We were all over Twitter and Reddit that night trying to see if anyone else saw it and no one seemed to have. It was quite bizarre. About 2 years ago, I was in Naples, Florida with my friend, staying at his dad's place. We were on the porch having a smoke around 11 p.m. I was leaning on the railing when suddenly, what I thought was a plane in the distance turned towards us. It was flying so low that the front lights blinded us. My friend scrambled for his phone, which turned out to be dead, and I, fearing I would miss it, didn't want to run inside to grab my phone. Though the craft was steadily gliding, it was all happening so fast. As the object got closer, we noticed it was a huge triangle, almost Fenny black, and had 3 huge circular lights on the bottom. It was so close, just above the trees right in front of the building. It was so silent. The only thing making sound was the trees rustling below the craft. Then the huge black triangle mother turned on a dime right in front of us and disappeared over the tops of the buildings. I swear to God this happened. I wouldn't have believed what I saw if I didn't see it with someone else. First time Reddit post. Had to comment on this, since I also had an up-close encounter with triangular UFO like user No800. I saw virtually the same thing in MS about 20 years ago, but got a lot closer look. Sister and I were driving down road in backwoods to her friend's grandmother's house. Side story not important, but essentially we were driving on roads surrounded by pine trees and every now and again cow pastures. It was after 9 p.m., may have been later, dark outside. I wanted to be a pilot at the time and consumed all aviation research I could get my hands on, simulators, home study kits for pilot licensing, etc. We were driving down road and I see low-flying plane in distance, maybe 1-2 miles in front of us, just topping the trees. We are moving approximately 40-50 mph. As we start getting closer, I realize the craft, only lights visible at this point, is moving way too slow and is likely to stall and crash at any moment. Then I realize it is not falling and is moving at a steady rate with trajectory to cross the road, and we are heading right for it. My sister is driving at time, she is 18. I'm 15. As we approach, it is steady moving right above. Treetops at maybe 5 mph or slower. Windows are down. No sound at all. No wind blow back on tops of trees. She stops the car as not to directly drive under its path. We look up through windshield while seated as it starts to come over the trees above the road in front of us. It is about 30-40 yards up and maybe another 15 yards in front of us. I am a curious skeptic, so it was my plan to follow the mystery object on foot. I open the door and step out to get a good look as this awesome, in the original jaw-dropping sense of the word, craft floats across the road in front of us. Object description: equilateral triangle, approximately 40-50 ft on each side, rounded corners. 5 lights all round. 3 of the lights were large, 3 ft diameter or so, and were at each corner. The other 2 lights were right next to one of the larger lights in line with the 2 larger lights on opposite corners. They were maybe 2-3 ft from the large light, and I'm guessing 6 in diameter. The lights were glowing standard light. Think bright light inside an opaque plastic white ball, but cleaner and dimmer. The moon was out and it was bright as well. So if there was any kind of faint lighting coming from any of the lights, it would have been masked. I did not perceive any. Also, the 2 small lights were a slightly different hue of white. That could have also been my perception lying to me when contrasting the small lights against the larger one nearest, don't know. Anyway, I could not tell how tall the craft was because we were too close to being underneath it. I can tell you it was massive, made no sound, and was not using any kind of propulsion that utilizes wind. No disturbance in trees, just eerie silence as it floated slowly. So back to me getting out of car. I tell sis I'm going to follow it. She barrels through the front seat and grabs my wrist through my open door and refuses to let go. Then states aliens would abduct me, blah blah. She's holding me. I'm standing up leaning over door, and we just watch this silent monstrosity continue to creep over the tree line out of sight. No sound, nothing. Sis starts the car back up. She cut it off when she stopped in middle of road. And we go to her friend's house and tell them the story. We both saw it. It was real. No hallucinations, no swamp gas. I will never say it was alien because I have no proof. It is just as likely to be top secret government tech in my opinion. I think it is unlikely we are alone in the universe, but I refuse to go there without evidence. What I can say is we saw a giant triangular craft move right over the treetops with no sound. It was close enough to hit with a rock. So trust me in that it was no mirage or distortion of perception. It was not using conventional propulsion technology, no air thrusts, but it was afloat. I observed no aliens, green men, loss of time, etc. But it was truly amazing to behold. I know EM drives are real or some advanced technology, and that in itself amazing enough to me.